Hi everyone. Yeah, well, I'm back again. Right, so the reason I thought just do this video, this is I'm gonna just talk about past toy crazes and things that I remember from the past. Yeah, so been thinking a lot about previous toy crazes that they've been up to date, up till today, or things all the the things that the kids want. And suddenly become these craze, and some disappear as fast as they come. Some gradually just die down. Some remain. Some make a big comeback after a very long length of time. Right. So yes. Well. So what's meant by a toy craze is sort of a new toy that suddenly just comes out. Sometimes sort of out of nowhere. A toy manufacturer just comes up with an idea for something they think kids will like, and as soon as it's on the market, it builds up interest through word of mouth, or in these days, maybe through the internet, through social media, and then suddenly it explodes, and certainly it's the biggest thing on the planet. And you probably the best example to use is the most recent craze, as we probably know, was the fidget spinner. And you say, yes, these are still around, and they're still fairly popular, but the craze does seem to have gone down a bit. It does seem to be sort of, the craze seems to be kind of at its end at this point. But yeah, still, I'm still seeing some shops have still got almost like some had nearly aisles full of them, or had full shelves full of them. Um, as I say, yes, this was a very odd sort of craze. A lot of people thought, because the fidget spinner was never meant to be a toy. It was developed several years before. In the early, apparently 1997 was when the idea was first uh, marketed to toy companies by a lady who had a physical disability, and who struggled to play with her daughter because she was suffering from some disease that affected her mobility, and she came up with the idea for what would eventually become known as these things. Uh, but unfortunately, yeah, I heard, yes, there was a plan. Hasbro had agreed to do the testing, but due to the immense popularity of GAC at the time, which was this kind of slime, this big slime sort of toy, this brand of slime that all kids were playing with, unfortunately, production never went through. And it wasn't until earlier this year that the fidget spinner, pretty much became mainstream on the market. So yeah, so saying that, so that's been the most recent one. We really don't know what the next craze is going to be. I mean, obviously, yes, amongst while the fidget spinner craze has been just exploding, there have been other fidget toys that have also become quite popular. None of them really became as popular as the spinner. I mean, yeah, the first, as well as that, there's been these things. These things, the fidget cubes, which again, just a sort of a simple gadget, which was invented for kids who have problems with focus, or like ADHD, autism, and where they just need something to occupy their hands with, just to stop them, just to help them sort of sit still and try and keep focused. And the strange thing was is that with the things like this, with the spinner, the cube, it wasn't just kids that were wanting them. We've heard lots of adults like them as well. I mean, yes, I mean, I've got quite a few of them now. I've been collecting them. Like, and now that they're getting cheaper, because they're not as popular, shops quite a few shops, particularly in the bigger cities, have still got them in. Still got a lot of fidget spinners in. Like, I was in Toys R Us the other day. I was having to look at what fidget spinners they had, and I met a bloke there, and he said, yeah, he was a real collector of them, and he got 60 of them. Yeah. Uh, so and as yes, and I think it's been good for adults. Like when they get bored, like a lot of people who work in offices, people who commute to work every day, travel by train or bus, or there's just if they get bored, if they get if you get agitated, or if you start to feel stressed, you can pick something like this or this up and just sort of occupy yourself. Right, so yeah, so that's been the current sort of craze that's kind of dying down now. So if I think back to when I was at school, when I started school, the very first, very big popular craze I remember was Pogs. Of course, yes, they recently, well, they're still around. They've never been quite as popular as as they were. They've never been a craze again, I think, since the 1994, 1995 time. But yeah, they were these little sort of cardboard discs with characters on them. That they had them in many brands. And there was like a slammer, which you could either do like shiny or writing, kind of like a heads tails thing, and the slammer could be used to knock the Pogs down. And it's sort of the things friends can play with. A lot of problems, yes, and also something I should bring up with the crazes when you have a real craze. Particularly this happened when it got to Pokemon cards, this was 1999 to 2000. I mean, I hadn't heard of Pokemon. I heard, yeah, like most people, I remember Pokemon coming out in sort of 1999, and it came out. It sort of to the very end of that year was when it came to the UK from America, because I was actually in America on holiday with my family in New York, and then we went to Florida to go to Disneyland and Universal Studios, and that's when I first saw Pokemon, and the impact of it there was already massive. And Pokemon cards, yeah, any 90s kid will remember that we, collected them, and all the there was lots of other Pokemon stuff, like Pokemon figures, the Game Boy games, stickers for the sticker book, literally everything was branded as Pokemon. You get stationery, anything basically, anything cuddly toys, because that's how it exploded. And of course, yes, as everyone was playing with the trading cards in school, just coming in, swapping with their friends. Eventually, yes, we know that nearly every school banned the trading cards because of the distraction and problem they became in classrooms, and yes, eventually, yes, it got banned, as did Game Boys. As I say, I remember, there was a rapid rise in sales of Nintendo Game Boys at the time of Pokemon's hype as well, because because it obviously started out as a Nintendo Game Boy game in Japan, became a trading card game, and then yes, it was made into an anime series. And yes, so everyone suddenly wanted a Game Boy. I mean, as I remember, I just got my first PlayStation for my 9th birthday that year, and I don't know if I'd ever really wanted a Game Boy until this point. I'd heard of them, but it wasn't until Pokemon came out and all my friends all got one and got the Pokemon games. That's when I knew that I wanted one, simply just to be one of the crowd. So eventually for my 10th birthday, I got my Game Boy, and I had about 4 Pokemon of the original Pokemon games. Yep. And after time, as it started out, people were watching the series, people were collecting the cards, people were, trading all the cards, and basically everything was branded for Pokemon just due to its popularity. They make so much money off it. Eventually, yes, Game Boys got banned, the cards got banned from nearly every school, and but over time, over the a couple of years, it just died down because new things came along. Of course, yeah. So I think for many 90s kids, the Pokemon craze is what probably we most remember as being the most explosive craze. And then other things that made other things that became crazy, like some, you know, updated versions of the most modern toys, like yo-yos. Like there was a time they suddenly became popular again when you had like the pro-yos, kind of a bit like this one. This is a Star Wars one with Kylo Ren on it. Yeah, people suddenly all wanted yo-yos again, sort of back in 1997. And everyone kind of went and got a yo-yo, a pro-yo, or a fancy light-up yo-yo, just to be one of the crowd. And and the issue was then brought up at school, because once again it became like a big distraction. And then but then eventually that just died down. Yo-yos have remained popular. You know, have always been a fairly popular toy amongst people because they're fun to play with. And some people, view them as like, in interviews with, or things we've heard about the fidget spinner, people like compare them to yo-yos because I suppose they were kind of a fidget toy. But then again, yo-yos have always really been marketed as toys, whilst as something like the spinner only recently became marketed as a toy, and it had, it had things with all the brands on it, so to make sure kids could have so many of them just to make money. And then things like that, and there were also like the smaller things like the farting putty. I remember. Yeah, everyone was buying that at one point and bringing it to school. Everyone was buying, had like a different colour farting putty, kind of, novelty toys, or those sort of like those little bracelets, those, like metal bracelets covered in fabric that kind of started out like a strip and then you could slap it on your wrist. They became really popular. Another thing I remember is things that they had called hopper poppers. Which were basically just like these little bits of plastic, these little round bits of plastic that you could fold inside out. You put it down, you wait a few seconds, and it jumps back into its original shape. Those were really popular for a good amount of time. I remember getting them they were very popular, sort of free gift with the kids' corner Muller yogurts. You could also buy them in shops as well, and there was a time where everyone was collecting them. God, me and my sister, must have had, probably in total, there must have been like 100 of them in our house. Also, yes, so things like that have been kind of a craze. And also you may remember that there was Go-Go's in the 90s, which were later then rebranded as Crazy Bones, which became popular, which were very similar things, just little plastic figures you could collect, and and you get a pack of them for like £1. It's just been odd, and I think certainly since the fidget spinner craze, there have been lots of talks looking back at all the different toy crazes, like, and also yes, at the same time, similar time to Pokemon. So I think what became something really big was things like Furbies. Furbies. A lot of young females wanted Furbies because they were kind of, even though Pokemon wasn't really aimed at really males or females, but there was, the Furbies were kind of a very popular toy. And I do remember watching one Furby advert, and it had, for some reason, at the end of the advert, it shows you the different Furbies you can buy. It actually had the original Pikachu plush that you could buy on the Furby advert, even though I don't think it was any way related to Furbies. But it was the Pokemon plushies and the Furbies were kind of alternatives to each other. Things like Furbies. I'm trying to think. I'm sure there were some other things. Also, with things like what they call fingerboards, like mini finger skateboards. They became quite popular, which is basically like a mini skateboard you can use with your fingers, and people, you could do tricks with them. People collected them. Oh, and of course, yes, thinking of that reminded me of course, another very popular one, which was digital pets. The most popular brand being Tamagotchi. Yep, we all remember those. Everyone, oh, how every kid had to have one of those. And yes, they certainly, I remember, got banned in my school. Lots of schools banned them because kids were bleeping away in class. Sorry. Yeah, yes, I do remember. Oh, how I remember pestering my parents for about a month to get me a cyber pet, is another thing they were called. Yeah, I had one. I don't think I ever had actually one by the brand Tamagotchi, but there were loads of things making like the really cheap ones that didn't last long. That had a very shit battery in them and kind of that. And yeah, and then there were like the really big one. Yeah, mainly like the really proper ones. In total, I must have had about 8 or 9 of them over the course of a couple of years, probably about a couple of years, because none of the ones I got really ever lasted long. So yeah, but then eventually that died down. But for a time back in 2004, around 5 time, that Tamagotchis particularly, they actually made a bit of a comeback. And I remember people in when I was in year 10 at school, I was about 14 to 15 at the time. Some people there even had them. I remember them being like really big when I was 8 years old. But yeah, I do remember them making a slight comeback at some point, becoming fairly popular again. But then once again, it soon disappeared. And then other things I remember, like kids collecting when I was growing up a bit. When I was growing up, becoming a young teenager. Some when obviously the Yu-Gi-Oh cards, when Yu-Gi-Oh came out, kind of almost became like the new Pokemon. Yes, very similar, branded on everything. Game Boy, Nintendo games, anime series. Yeah, very popular anime series, toys, trading cards. Yeah, I do remember, all the time, the problems that they were becoming. Beyblades, yes, Beyblades. Yeah, I was about 12 or 13, I think, when the Beyblades came out, and everyone was still playing with them at school. Well, everyone was playing with them at school at the time, and obviously, yes, Beyblade was adapted from merchandise from an anime series. But given the fact that the actual toys were very fun to play with, a lot of people had them that weren't fans of the anime series. I had a friend who had a couple of Beyblades, and we used to play together. And I said, do you ever watch the Beyblade series? And he said, no, I didn't even know there was one. I thought it was just a toy. Yeah, so I remember I had a few Beyblades. I had a Beyblade arena that you could do battles in, like a little plastic arena that you could buy. Yeah, and that fad lasted for quite some time, but then it soon died down. I think after it was Beyblades, then it was mainly Yu-Gi-Oh. Yeah, Beyblades, and then Yu-Gi-Oh kind of came along. So yeah, those kind of all the toy crazes. I kind of after I left school, I kind of lost. I kind of just lost. I lost kind of contact with all the toy crazes that were coming since, because when I left college, when it was time for me to go to college, then go to work, you don't you lose contact with the crazes, and it isn't until, of course, craze with these things. The fidget spinners came out earlier this year. This has been the first craze that I've sort of participated in by buying them, because they've been very appealing for adults as well. That I've kind of but this to say, it is very odd how these toy crazes come along and then they disappear. Well, some don't disappear very quickly. Some go on. Some just die down. And I think I know that I'll like the fidget spinners for a long time to come, even when it's all probably over. I think you'll still be able to buy them. I think they'll remain popular amongst the people that they were originally designed for, the people like ADHD or autism, as to say. I have Asperger's syndrome, so I can suffer from anxiety and stress, and yes, they've been good for me. So I'll probably still use them for a long time to come. Maybe one day, you never know. They might make a comeback again. But I guess we'll see. Right, so yeah, that's kind of been my video on past toy crazes. So as usual, I will say thanks all for watching. Hope you're all doing well. You're all awesome. See you soon. Bye.